Don't give up. Keep trying. Make sure that the people that you are going to work for are going to respect you as much as they expect to be respected.
Welcome to the Private Chef Podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannes Henche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef Podcast. Today we have Danila, and let's dive right in because we've already been going.
Starting the recording about, our journeys, and we all have very different journeys. Mine started, I'm 58 years old now, and I went to culinary school when I was 45. I had 3 young children. My youngest was 11, and I had a part-time job, and I was going to school 2-3 nights a week. I went to the French culinary, and I did an internship. So I had like 1 day off a week, and it was really crazy, and it all lasted about a year, and then things started to kind of mellow out a little bit, or settle, I should say. But then I knew that I did not want to work in restaurants. I knew that that was not my path. I happen to be a very nurturing, very accommodating person. So I knew that I would do best in a private setting. Not that I cannot take direction. I can take direction and I can listen to criticism because the people I work for always tell me, oh, I like it this way, I like it that way, or you did this, can you do less of something and more of something else? So I'm totally okay with all of that. It's just kudos to the people who work in restaurants. It's really hard work. Not that my work is any less hard, but it's really intense. I started, how did I get my first break came, I started doing lunch for a company a textile company in Midtown Manhattan that were doing really well, and they wanted to give back to the employees. So I started cooking lunch for them. And then from there, I got a call and I started working for a woman, just a single person, part-time. And I've had like 100 part-time jobs, sometimes 3 of them at the same time, sometimes 4, sometimes 2, depending on what the people's needs, the family's needs. And some people only want dinner, so I was able to go to other people's during the day, and they didn't care if you left the meals out for them. Some people wanted you to just cook and leave meals for 2 or 3 days and then come back again and do the same thing for the rest of the week. So that way, I guess I got really lucky, and that's how I got experience. But it takes a really long time for you to find that one family that you like and they like you. It's hard. So chefs so it's my thinking that we all know how to cook, right? But it's also your personality. You could be the best chef, the best cook in the world, and you don't get along with the people you work for, the food is not going to taste the same. It's all about love. And it's all about, that to me is a secret ingredient to whatever we do, right? It's the love you put into it and the dedication you have for it. My style of cooking have been described as fancy family style. So not to say that I cannot plate beautifully, but I am much more comfortable and much better at plating family style, buffet style. I'm very good at it. Anyway, that said, about 4 years ago, about 4 years ago, my daughter, who's now 28, got diagnosed with celiac. And that brought me into a whole different journey. First of all, our home, we went totally gluten-free. we have no gluten in my house whatsoever. Unless you bring a sandwich from outside, you eat it and you throw it out, there is no gluten in my house. So I've gotten very good at cooking gluten-free, baking gluten-free, either desserts or treats, pastas, pizza, breads. I've gotten very good about the gluten-free diet. But then she was still having symptoms after going totally gluten-free. And I was listening to a podcast. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jada Pinkett Smith. She has that Red Table Talk. And this is about 2 years ago. And she had her whole family, her kids, her husband, and they were all talking to this woman who is a integrative functional nutritionist. And she was asking about their symptoms, and I was hearing them, and I could hear my daughter. Like, those were the same symptoms that my daughter had. So that put me, and then the following podcast, to follow the story, like 2 weeks later, they all had work done, like tests done. And I wanted to see what the results were and what the tests that they had done. And in the meantime, I went onto the Integrated Functional Medicine website. It's, I think they're somewhere based in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. And I found her a medical doctor that does integrated functional medicine here in New York City that took her insurance. And my daughter has a thing about the gender of the doctors that she sees, and she prefers women. And men doctors tend to be dismissive of certain symptoms and signs that happens to women that do not happen to men. And the men doctors tend to be dismissive and tend to tell you, oh, that's not what it is. So we were not taking no for an answer. We had gone to about a dozen doctors before I heard this podcast. So I made her an appointment, and but we had to wait 3 months. And in the meantime, she was miserable. She was feeling, she was fatigued. She was always tired. You're 27, 28 years old. There's no reason in this world that you should be tired, especially when you're working from home. There's no reason why you have a hard time getting up in the morning and you have no energy, and anything you eat is going to upset your stomach or give you stomach pains or so on. So I took integrative nutrition courses. I took about 190 hours, and this is during the pandemic. And I knew, and besides, between that and the podcast and what their outcome was, I figured out some things that I could do for her. So we drink a lot of tea at home. So I threw away anything that was not organic. So we switched, because it could also be an environmental
pesticides.
Yeah, environmental issues can make your stomach and your digestive system hurt a lot more, like shampoos with lots of fragrances and soaps, fragrant soaps, all of that. We went to non-fragrant everything. And I switched all the plastic containers. We threw out all plastic containers and got glass. I threw away all the teas that were not organic, and we got everything organic. We did not open a can. We did not open a box. We made everything from scratch, like everything.
Real food.
And real food. I'm not saying that there's certain things in a can that are not real, like you can get real tomatoes, but you know what? You also have to think about the fact that to give them shelf life, they have to have a preservative, right? They could be organic and they're still going to have a preservative, because otherwise in a month after you put them in a can, you have to throw the can away. So, they obviously...
Well, you can treat them with a lot of heat, so you don't need to add preservatives, but obviously that changes the structure of the food. And
exactly.
And I think just touching up on what you've been saying about, I think most people mistake their skin for a complete barrier. And it simply isn't. The skin is the first layer of exchange with the entire ecosystem around
Absolutely.
us. You know, it's really,
Absolutely.
it's not a barrier. It connects us to everything around us.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So anyway, so we made all those changes, and in about a month, she was starting to feel better. She used to have really sharp pains on her stomach, and she started sleeping better. She had a little more energy. She was just feeling better all in general. She had a million different tests done. So once we made the appointment, we had to wait with the integrated functional medicine doctor. We had to wait about 3 months for the appointment, and that's why we did that in the meantime. And then we sent her all the test results, and the only thing that she did was send her for one test. So it's a fecal test, but here in Western medicine, when they send you to do a fecal test, they just do a fecal test, and 2 days later you have the results. No. So when you do a functional medicine fecal test, it takes 3 weeks. So they do cultures. They separate it, and they do different cultures. So I knew what she had from what I heard from the podcast. I knew that it was going to come back with at least a leaky gut, right? So sure enough, we waited 3 weeks, and she came back with leaky gut, and she came back with Candida in her intestines, which is a yeast infection inside.
Thank you.
Candida is a yeast infection in your small intestine. So it's obviously going to be painful because it's an infection. And when you put food in your body, that is going to aggravate whatever is sore inside your stomach. And then a leaky gut happens when your GI tract has been through so much and it's gone undiagnosed for so long that the villi, which is the lining of the inside of your small intestine, gets, for lack of a better word, gets worn out.
Yes.
And it becomes like little teeny holes, and the food goes through it instead of being absorbed. It doesn't absorb the nutrients. It just goes, and it doesn't absorb into your bloodstream. Therefore, that's going to make you feel fatigue. It's going to make you feel dizzy. It's going to make you feel like scatterbrain. It's all those things because your body's not getting enough nutrients. So your body, it's going to get, out of whack. It's going to get out of sync, out of the same synchronism that it should have.
So,
but anyway, so that's what happened. Tell me.
Yeah, it was just the food just passes through, or it actually kind of. I don't exactly know what the symptoms of leaky gut is and we don't need to get too deep into it, but I'm just trying to understand what that means for the person experiencing it.
So so what it is like you're going to lack nutrients. Mm-hmm. So the side effects are going to be anything that your nutrition is not being absorbed. Whatever you're eating, you could be eating the best food in the world, but your body is not absorbing it because it doesn't have the capacity to do so. So it goes through before it gets absorbed. Instead of being digested like yours and I are, right? It gets slowly digested and then it gets absorbed into your bloodstream. Particles of the food will go into the bloodstream without being digested. Okay. That means that the nutrients are not going to be they're not going to be beneficial to you. Yeah. Right. So that, and it was very easily fixed with some natural, like organic oregano. Like oregano, she used to take digestive enzymes for a little while.
Okay.
Oregano pills.
Wow, this is amazing because
her leaky gut.
the power of plants, and I'm getting more into that because of my dad's health right now a lot. And, herbs, from basic herbs like rosemary, thyme, rosemary, they're powerful. And it's actually incredible what can be done in terms of health. And so how long did it take her to recover?
If you eat like a month, she was better.
Wow.
And now she knows exactly when she goes off her diet, she'll eat one too many hamburgers, and she starts to get pains. She knows exactly what it is, and she knows exactly what to do. And life is so much better. Also, she takes vitamin D because that's the fatigue was also due to lack of vitamin D. But I feel that herbs are, for example, say you go out and you eat too much and you feel super full and you're sluggish and you don't it's too hard to walk home, drink some peppermint tea. The peppermint tea, before you even halfway done drinking a cup of tea, you will start feeling better. Aromatics are very good for your digestive system. So if you feel nauseous or super full, or you feel like you have a little bit of indigestion or anything like that, don't go to over-the-counter things like Tums or any of that. That just makes it worse in the long run. Gotta get a cup of tea. Get a cup of peppermint tea. Green tea is really good for you. You can do lavender. You can do all kinds, chamomile tea. You can just do so many things. There's so many herbs that are going to help you to make your digestion feel better in the mornings. You can do a little bit of oatmeal with oat milk or almond milk, and you can put a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, and that is just, you can stew some apples on the side and add that to your oatmeal, and there's your sweetness. You don't have to add sugar, you don't have to add anything, just it is the best thing, and it's so good for your digestion because oatmeal is a soluble fiber, so it digests really easily in your body.
So for some people, this might sound very far out from the Western diet, but obviously you and me went down the rabbit hole, and very much so for the loved ones in our life. I went down it for myself, but also when my dad got sick, I really went down and what works, and it's incredible what people can do when they change and really tune in with their body, and go and find the food that makes you rejuvenate and makes your health overall thrive. And I think, as you said earlier, there's a lot of items in the Western diet that are not exactly supporting health, and I find it so amazing, the journey you went on with your daughter. I'm sure she feels greatly empowered now, knowing what was going on. And, it also empowered you to serve your clients on a completely different level.
You know what? You said the right thing there with my daughter, because she, at one point, because the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong and what was happening to her body, everybody had a different diagnosis, and nobody really got to the root of what was happening. And she was feeling so disconcerted, and she was feeling like, Mommy, am I going crazy? Am I making these things up? What is happening? And none of that obviously was true. She had real symptoms, and she had real concerns that it was not like her mind was making them up, or but she, so many times she said to me, Mommy, am I going crazy? Because you doubt yourself, because the doctors are telling you that it's this thing, but then you take something for that thing and that thing doesn't go away. And somebody else tells you something else and you try that and it still doesn't go away. Yeah. So you start to doubt yourself. So it becomes a psychological journey also.
See, without picking on doctors, I'm actually, I'm pretty close to a couple of doctors and some of my friends are doctors. My sister is a doctor. Most of them never in their entire academic time spend an hour learning about food. And that just blows my mind. Western professional medical students don't learn anything about food and the impact on the body unless it's like related to it just blows my mind. Like they look at the body very symptomatic and in like single organs. I'm like, okay, we can turn this off or on and that might help you. But there isn't this holistic approach, like when it comes to inflammation and different symptoms like leaky gut syndrome, where they have that understanding. Right. What is going into the system? Like, again, going back to my dad's health, we got him on a whole food, plant-based diet, no sugar, no alcohol, nothing. Organic vegetables from the farm down the street mainly, and a lot of legumes. Within 6 weeks, we got him off the blood pressure meds that the doctor gave him for years. Right. The doctor never ever told him to change his diet.
But you know what? I agree with you 100%. I wrote, so part of the course that I just finished in Ayurveda, you have to write a thesis program, so part of, I wrote a thesis on celiac disease, and going undiagnosed. And as part of my conclusion, it's not that I am not saying anything badly about medical doctors. I mean, they work really hard. They study very hard. And I am totally 100% with that. But the thing is that they need to sometimes, I feel, it's my personal opinion, that they need to think outside the box, because they've learned that these are the symptoms and this is what needs to be done for those symptoms. And this is what those symptoms are. And it's not always necessarily that way. For example, with my daughter, it wasn't that way, and I feel like, and it's so easy to just tell somebody, why don't we start with an easy to digest diet, right? Some overcooked basmati rice, yep. some legumes, some vegetables. Make yourself a little soup with just vegetables, and you can put maybe a few legumes in there if you want to, but just things that are really easy for your body to digest, and include some herbs. Herbs, first of all, they flavor your food. So if you want somebody not to have salt, put herbs in it. You need to make the food flavorful, but you also cumin, coriander, those things are so good for your digestive system. And I understand that they're not everybody's cup of tea, but you know what? A little pinch here and there, you get used to it after a while, and you're going to see how much better you're going to feel. And I think that I rather feel well and get used to a taste, right, than say, oh no, I don't want that at all, and not even give it a try, because you want to feel better.
Well, here's the thing. I think we're a bit, and that's probably more true for men, I would say. I think women might be more in tune with their body. 10 years ago, a bit over 10 years ago, I started having ulcers, and my first, so I obviously went to a doctor. They gave me pantoprazole, omeprazole, kind of, what regulates the acidity in the stomach. And instead of looking at what I'm putting in my system, I was just doubling down on suppressing what was happening in my body. And my body was basically screaming for help. And it wasn't until I was actually vomiting blood that I was like,
awful.
Oh, okay, I have to change. I have to change something here, because this is obviously not going the right way. But I also, my diet was
obviously
horrific.
Whatever you're doing is not working.
It was, in hindsight, I was like, obviously the body is just like, giving.
So, it's like Ayurveda says, right? You are what you don't digest.
Yeah. And that's when I really started to tune in more. I'm like, okay,
Ayurveda says you are what you don't digest. And sometimes, this may sound disgusting, but sometimes you need to look at the poop that is in your toilet bowl and see what you're not digesting. I know it sounds awful, but you know what? There's certain things you're either not chewing properly, are not chewing enough, or there's just foods that your body cannot digest. And then, so don't eat them, or cook them more, make them softer so it's easier. Because, I mean, it's really funny, but that's what we were just taught. It's like you are what you don't digest. So you want to avoid all of that.
Yeah, and I invite everybody to get more familiar with what food can do for you. And one of the things that I started is fasting, and I'm actually in a fasted state right now, and I do it once a week, roughly, depending on how the work schedule goes. But it's amazing.
How long do you do it for? 1 day? Do you do it for a day?
Yeah, it's usually for a day. And I've been doing it more extended. I've been doing 7-day fasts and 10-day fasts. I tried the Master's Cleanse before, which I wouldn't do again. I would much rather do water fast now. And I think people that are familiar with the True North Fasting Center with Alan Goldham, I think there is a lot of science now that backs up.
Okay, so tell me, you were telling me about
fasting,
about your journey.
Yeah, it's just that I always invite people to explore.
Fasting.
Yeah, to explore fasting more, and one of the things that I've done is water fasting, and I think there's a lot of research now to back it up and see that this is not some hocus pocus, but there is a science behind it. There's a science behind feeling well and eating well. And that's why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, because you went deep down the rabbit hole for your daughter, and you just got your certificate in the Ayurvedic diets, so congratulations to that. And I think it's just very worthwhile to pursue that.
Thank you.
Besides the path that we're taking as chefs to give people an experience that tastes good, I think even more rewarding for me is when I get to serve people with their health and show them what food can do for them. I appreciate, being able to serve our clients from a health perspective, even more than from just a culinary experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Like the person that I work for right now, she has a lot of digestive issues, and there are certain things that she cannot eat because they're just too hard. Like she cannot have cabbage and broccoli. They're very gassy to begin with, and she has a very hard time digesting them. So like we stay away from that. We don't do dairy either. And every time she feels a certain way, I make her tea. So now she jokes with me and she's like, "Hey, I'm feeling this way. Can you make me some tea?"
Yeah.
Because I've been trying to push the teas.
How does she respond to meat compared to, for example, like cabbage and broccoli?
She can digest meat. She doesn't eat it every day, but we do it like once a week. We'll have she'll have a steak like once a week. She's not very fond of fish. But I make her fresh pasta, and she loves pesto sauce. So I make her fresh pasta and pesto, and we eat it at least twice a week. And today, for example, I made pesto and pasta on Monday. So we're going to have it again today, but today we're going to add a piece of chicken to it. I try to keep everything very moist. She happens to like lots of lemon. So I do a little bit of lemon. We'll throw in some capers because she likes that also. But I put herbs in there, and, we always have a side of vegetable, and she also has a salad. So, we try to, but it's just like cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, although she likes coleslaw. We also used vegan mayonnaise. We don't do regular mayonnaise because it upsets her stomach. Other than that, she cannot do anything Asian that has sauces like soy sauce or anything that's extra salty. She had a kidney transplant like about 10 years ago. And so salt is very hard for her body to process and eliminate. So if she has too much salt, she feels it right away. Like her joints, her ankles, like you can tell right away. So we stay away from all of that. So I get to, and for the most part, she's really easygoing and I can put whatever spices I want. So I just get creative and she loves it. And and that's it. I mean, but it's just, just have to be aware like anything else. I mean, it's like anybody else you're cooking for. Yes, you cook what they like, but you try to make it as healthy as possible. And you try to discourage like, unhealthy foods with like, hey, what about if we substitute that with this? Yeah. Like I make her blueberry muffins. So we make them with almond flour. I don't use sugar. I use maple syrup. I do coconut oil instead of butter. We also make a banana bread or banana muffins, and I don't use any sugar at all. And we always make them with coconut oil. So, we substitute, like we still eat things that we all like, but we just, we substitute. We give up like processed sugar and we use maple sugar, like organic maple sugar. And that's it. And like sometimes it calls for 2/3 of a cup and I only use 1/3 of a cup. It's still, like you're not going to miss it. It's still delicious. It's still good. And, I mean, I do my little parts, here and there to just make it healthier.
I think it's also a question of being adjusted to it. See, the thing about food is our flavor profile is actually plastic. And if we go down the rabbit hole of health, there will be a day, and most people might not believe that in the beginning, but there will be a day where they might really crave crunchy vegetables, real fruits, healthy salads, real herbal flavors that are not, out of some preserved Caesar dressing. And that's a palate.
I crave them.
Yeah. I totally like, I crave fresh fruits and vegetables all the time. But it's something that developed. And I think for people, it's kind of hard to see that it's the flavor profile is actually plastic, and they will eventually get to appreciate it.
Yeah. I agree with you. You know what? A perfect example. This past week, we had gone to Disneyland for like 5 days. And to be honest with you, it's really hard to find something healthy.
It was really hard. Impossible.
Like, oh my God. Like every restaurant had maybe 2 salads. They were the most boring salads in the world. And the dressing tasted like it was like out of a bottle. Like, take the time, make a fresh dressing. At least if you're not going to give me healthy foods, like prepare things that are healthier, right? Like instead of giving me dressing from a jar, it takes half an hour to make a big bowl of dressing for the whole day. It's like restaurants do it all the time. And it was so hard. By the 3rd day, I was like, I need salads. Can we please go somewhere that they have salads? Because that is all I wanted to eat. Like, I was like, I don't want to look at another sandwich or a piece of bread anywhere. I just like, everything was like burgers and sandwiches and like breaded things. I'm like, oh my God, we need some really good stuff. Please.
But I can relate to the breaded things. See, coming from Germany, I'm used to have like really good sourdough bread, and I think while I haven't really eaten a lot of processed sugar, or actually close to none in the last couple months, I do crave a good kind of bread occasionally, like those. The way I'm used to it from home. So I think there's an emotional component to food that we and probably more so when we're stressed.
Absolutely.
It's very comforting. I mean, there's a reason it's called comfort food, because it gives us that emotional feeling, of being taken care of, and that's That's obviously a
food,
component.
right?
Yeah. So, which I personally think is also a very large chunk of being
it's nostalgia. It's like,
Yeah.
is that nostalgia, like you're missing home, that, you know, like when you grew up and you're in your house, your parents and your grandma brought this beautiful bread and you're like, you can't stop eating it. I get it. I mean, you know, I come from a similar culture. We make everything fresh. And it's hard when you can't buy fresh food that, you know, but a lot of people are used to just fast food. And even if they change their fast food diet, like say they go to fast foods 4 times a week, so go to 2 times a week and eat something at home, their bodies, their chemistries are going to change. Their bodies are going to feel better. Their chemistry inside, like it's just going to be so much better.
Yeah.
But I guess we need some more education in this country.
Well, I also think
about foods and nutrition.
There is the information is out there. It's just the incentive is not really there to, like, if you really go, for example, down with the diet that I prescribed to my dad, which really helped him. The first time we went to the supermarket, you basically walk past 90% of what's being sold.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. However, you know, this is also something like you were talking about when you were a child and you were growing up. So it's the same thing here. So a lot of people, yes, the information is out there, but you also have to remember that a great majority of people are not going to take the time to do that for whatever reason, right? Social, economic, or whatever the reasons may be. You need to teach this to your children from the time that they start going to school. I believe that it's really important because if my kids come home and they say, oh, mommy, I don't want to do that. Can we just cook this? Right? And the mom is going to say, you know, most parents are going to give in to their kids' cravings. Yeah. So if you're teaching the children from when they're young and you're teaching them good eating habits, then they are most likely going to grow up with good eating habits, thinking of food in a very different way.
Yeah, that's
thinking
true.
of food as something that nourishes your body, you know? So but anyway, those are my thoughts on that. That's my personal opinion.
Well, I think you're hitting the nail there. And for example, one of the things that I've experienced cooking for families is, you know, they obviously want their kids to grow up eating the right things. And not everybody has the benefit of having a private chef in their house. But it is... Oh,
absolutely.
It is more effort, and as you said, like somebody who's a maybe single mom working the whole day, it's a lot harder for her to put in the love into the food the same way that maybe someone that has a private chef that takes care of the entire family full time. So,
no, absolutely. Listen, I was a single mom for a very long time. But I never went to McDonald's. McDonald's for us was a treat when you took a drive, like a road trip, right? Like you're on the road going places and you stop through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and that was like once a year. When my children were little, like I cooked their meals. I worked. My children went to school. I mean, you don't have to make an elaborate meal like you and I would do working as private chefs, but you can make a piece of chicken with a little bit of rice and a vegetable, and that doesn't take a lot of time, and it doesn't have to be elaborate. It just has to be homemade.
But it
just has to
it requires you to know how to cook.
All the preservatives. True that.
and
that
I think
is
that's
very true.
And that's already where I think times have changed, and there are many people that don't grow up knowing how to cook, learning it. And I think that's already the first step where people might feel intimidated by by doing it. And I mean, it's like anything. Obviously, you can just learn it. You can. Worst case, you overcook the chicken, or you burn it, and maybe the first time you can't eat it. The second or third time you get better. The 10th time you got it figured out. So there's really no excuse to go about that.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not saying don't eat, if you have to eat fast food, you have to eat fast food. But like I said, instead of having it 4 times a week, you have it twice a week. Or, just kind of cut it in half a little bit. And just in general will be better for you, just in general.
Yeah. So
anyway.
Yeah, so for someone coming into this industry, the way you did it, what would you say is something that they should keep an eye on to find a family that is a good match for them?
Don't give up. Keep trying. Make sure that the people that you are going to work for are going to respect you as much as they expect to be respected, right? Because they're going to expect you to respect them, but they have to respect you the same way. It goes 2 ways. You're not going to be happy in a place that people don't respect you. And you're not there to be their best friend. Okay, you always have to remember that there is a line that you should not cross. Yes, you could be friendly with them. And like, for example, the woman I work for, like when nobody's around, it's just me and her, we are best friends. But when there's other people here, I don't get involved. I don't get involved in the conversations. I don't put my 2 cents into it. I walk away. I stay in the kitchen. Now, when it's only me and her, I'll sit down and have a glass of wine with her while she eats dinner, because it's just the 2 of us. But when our other people, whether they're her kids or whoever it is, you have to learn where to draw the line, because at the end of the day, they are your employers and you are the employee, and them and their families are going to come before you. So it's really important, but it's also really important that you get along with the people that you work for. So if you go for an interview and you get like a weird sensation or a weird feeling that this is not the right place for you, then please go with it, because things are not going to end well and you could lose on another opportunity. It's going to take time. Maybe some people take longer than others, like anything else in this life, right? I was working a lot of part-time gigs, and it took me a good 2 years to find the place. I've been here now like a year, and it's the place where I want to stay. And it is the longest that I work full time. Like I work longer part-time for other families, like 2 years, 3 years, but full time, this is the longest I've had, and I'm super happy here. And, but you have to find that family that you click with. It's so important, because we can all cook, but we don't all have the personality, you know. You have,
well, some better than others.
For sure, for sure. Some better than others. But I think that's my biggest advice is to just be true to yourself first, you know. Also, there are tons of, for example, here in New York City, there are tons of agencies. There are household staffing agencies. You can always sign up with all of them and, you know, send them your resume and email the person that's going to be in charge of your job search every couple of weeks, and go on their website and see what they have available and go on interviews. It's the only way you're going to get a job. It's the only way you're going to get experience. It's hard. Sometimes it was kind of hard for me to go into the private sector. I don't know. That's the best I can say. Just try everything and don't give up, because if that's what you want to do and you know you're going to be good at it, then Keep it up. It'll be okay.
Yeah, I think...
I lost you
No,
again.
I'm there.
Are.
I just took a breath. Well, I think persistence is definitely for anything in life. If you really want to do something, don't take it lightly, and pursue it with enough action. Well, Danila, thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else you would like to explore or something that you would like to share?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
No, I think we're good, but thank you for having me.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.